Hello, welcome to Quackalope and welcome to 2025. I believe this is the 6th year of producing this YouTube channel, and along the way we've discovered a wide array of board games. I mean, countless board games because I don't want to take the time to sit down and go through them all and count them all out. I don't have a BGG list for a reason. I'm bad at organizing, and I'm not the best at simple addition. This is 10 board games that are officially in my collection. If I had you over to my house and we were walking through my personal board game collection, you would see these 10 games on the shelf, and I would admit, like I'm doing here, that they really shouldn't be there. And then I double down like I have for years at this point and just insist on the fact that I'm keeping them and they're never going away. And you know, it's like that bad habit that you just can't quite rid yourself of. These are 10 board games that I really shouldn't own, and I shouldn't have owned a long time ago, and I should stop owning the moment that this video goes live, but I'm going to continue owning them because they're either incredible, they're games I desperately want to get to the table, or there's this memory, vision of them, right? It's either the hope of the future or the story that you tell yourself from the past, and maybe one day you'll recreate that perfect group of people, that great gaming night, and if you don't have the game on hand, well, then how are you ever going to get it played? All right, let me know as we go through this what your board games what board games in your personal collection would fit into this list. I have 3 categories that I've tried to organize these games around. Board games that just have too much stuff, right? Like I really should get rid of them because 1, I'm running out of space, and 2, I almost don't want to play them because I'm so overwhelmed by the sheer amount of stuff in front of me. Then I have the category of board games that are just too much. Like, these are games that I can play, and I have played, but they require just this concoction, this perfect either game group or a commitment that almost no one is either willing or able to take on. And then finally, the last category are board games that I'm just never going to play. These games don't necessarily have too many items in them, and they might not be too big in and of themselves, but because of what they are or the type of people that would play these games, I'm never personally going to get them to the table. And I own them because I've played them, because I loved them, but I stare at them, either unopened in shrink or heartbrokenly, desperately wishing that I still had that right one gamer who would learn it, table it, teach me everything, and then just continue to run it with me for the rest of eternity and existence. I have a son now, so who knows? Maybe at like 17, he'll be ready to take on some of these games. I think you're right. That's a good argument. Dave, you were saying I should just keep these games in until at least my son turns 17. That seems like a reasonable compromise. After that, then we can have a strong conversation about getting rid of these board games. But with that, let's stop hemming and hawing. Let's move on with this list. What category should I start with? I'm going to start in the order that I just described them. The set of games that are just too much. And I have talked about this game and this game series so many times. This is too many bones. And I own the Trove Chest. I believe I own everything that's ever came out for it, including playmats and little player playmats, and organized it all in these big plastic tubs. And I have this 30-pound thing sitting in my Calyx shelf, and it never comes out. And then the new stuff came in, including this, which should be a more accessible little, 1-player, 2-player version of the game, and yet I still don't find myself diving into it. It's not my favorite game system, although the character progression, the way that you level up and gain experience, and the nuance in strategy and the way that you bridge and branch off is excellent. The storytelling is fun. The combat mechanics don't leave me overly excited, but I would still get this game to the table if it weren't just so daunting. Every new character is a new set of rules. All the expansions that I have mean that if I want to sit down and play this, I'm either grabbing this version, which feels like a compromise. I mean, it feels like something that I should do, but I'm unlikely to. Or I'm just overhauling, committing to everything, pulling the trove chest off of that Calyx shelf, setting it down on my nice wooden board game table, scratching the heck out of it again because there's little nails that poke out of it from the bottom. And probably spending hours trying my best to get too many bones to the table and still not succeeding at it. This game's awesome. Some of my closest friends have this game as their number one, their lifestyle game, their biggest investment of the hobby. And I want to spend the time diving headfirst into it. And that's why I'm holding on to it. Because I know what's there, and I'm excited and compelled by what's there, but there's so much stuff. It just makes me not want to play it. Another game, and pretty much every CMON title could probably be on this. I mean, when you have the ethos of trying to sell and deliver an entire lifestyle worth of board game to each Kickstarter project you run, then you get what I currently have and am experiencing with Marvel United X-Men, the entire arsenal of content, the packages, the board game boxes that I have stuck over here in the corner because they just don't fit anywhere right now. It's way too much. And it's great. Such a fun little cooperative game. A game that my wife wants to hold on to because our son eventually might be willing to sit down and play with us. A game that's easy to get to the table with friends and family, that dives into the multiverse and the stories that I, have grown up loving. And yet, every time I look at my 6 or 7 Calyx cubes worth of content and the boxes of stuff that's unopened that really could fill an entire Calyx on its own, it's just a lot to look at. I should really get rid of this. I'm not going to. That's kind of the point of this video, right? Like, I'm not getting rid of it. I even asked Shira if we could get rid of it. She said no. She insisted. She said, hey, we're keeping it. But I don't know why. The fact that it's so big, the scale of it makes me not want to get it off the shelf. Next one. I backed this back in the day. I mean, if anyone remembers how old this shrink-wrapped copy of Suburbia, the Collector's Edition is, let me know. I backed this when the Kickstarter ran, meaning I've carried this with me through 4 or 5 moves. I have all of the extra player boards, the different colors, the upgrade kits, everything you can get for this guy, and I was really excited about it. But it came in, and I have a tendency to not want to unshrink things, especially things that have an intimidating pile of extra cardboard on the back of them, because I don't know how to store them, and I'm not the best at organizing or doing basic math. So I left it in shrink, knowing that one day I would play it, and here's the problem. I did play it. I played the original Suburbia, small box, sat down, loved it, had a great time, really enjoyed it, decided that I was keeping this. Not only that, decided that I was keeping this and it was entering my permanent collection, and then I've spent the last year not opening it because I'm honestly still intimidated by the amount of cardboard, by the size of this box, by how much needs to go into just prepping this to be ready to run. I love Suburbia. Suburbia is great. You know what I shouldn't have? I shouldn't have a copy of the game that has everything in it because it's way too much. I just need simple, little, clean, original Suburbia, and then I'll be upset that I don't have all the other stuff. But right now, I have Suburbia and I'm not playing it. At least in that context, I would have Suburbia, be playing it, and be disappointed about the stuff that I missed out on. One of the faults of Kickstarter and crowdfunding projects in general is they sell you piles of things. I mean, I don't know if you experience this, but for me, sometimes the desire to own all the stuff, once I own it, once it's in my hand, is more limiting than almost any other factor when it comes to actually getting the thing that I wanted so desperately off the shelf and onto the table. So that's the first pile. Let's dive in to the second. The second pile are games that are just too big on their own, and we're going to dive into ARCs. I have this weird fascination with leader games. First off, they made one of my favorite games, Root, right? Super compelling. Second off, they have a, unique ability to create compelling games in whatever category they're creating, whether you're talking ARCs, Oath, Root, you're talking Fort, or some of their small box games. I haven't even played some of the newer ones. You're talking Vast back in the day, designed the original game by Patrick Leader. And here's the thing. I didn't love this, and my gaming group didn't love this. I really shouldn't have it anymore. But I'm compelled by it. I want to play it. I want to get through the campaign of it. But to get through the campaign of it, I need to teach 5 or 6 friends, not 5 or 6 friends, I need to teach 2 or 3 friends how to play it 5 or 6 times in a row so they get a good grasp of the core mechanics, and then we can dive into the actual in-depth campaign mode, the Blighted Reach expansion, the expansion box that's way bigger than the original box of the game in the first place. And I'm pretty sure that I'm gonna dive into this and have a similar experience, be super compelled, be very intrigued, be impressed to all heck with the mechanics and the design and the engine that it's created, and understand why people love it, but not feel that it's right for me or right for the gaming group that I have. But I'm still holding on to it. It's still here. Why? Because I'm intrigued. In fact, I kind of want to get a copy of Oath back with the new expansions that are coming out. Leader Games is one of those companies that hasn't always produced things that are correct for me or correct for the rest of the world, but everything they produce is compelling. I want to love it, even if sometimes it's mildly infuriating and probably completely unplayable. The next one, Twilight Imperium. I grabbed the small cover of this. I mean, the big cover is like this big. It's way too big for me to, I've got lots of boxes around me right now. And I have this mixed together, because if you're going to have, the expansion product, you might as well just mix them all together. They're all slathered together in the same big core box. Here's the thing. Some of my best gaming experiences, adventures, evenings have been sitting with the crew from Ivy Studios and the crew from Quackalope playing Twilight Imperium until 8 a.m. thinking that we would finish at like 2 a.m. and we'd all get a little bit of a nap, but the game went on for 6 extra hours and none of us minded so much because it was such a blast. But I've owned a copy of this in the past and proceeded to never play it until a friend got it to the table and I ended up giving him or selling him my copy. And now, once again, I re-own a copy of Twilight. I'm not the host of this game. I'm not the person arranging a 18-hour play session with all the rules and teaching the game and getting it all structured. I'm the guy that joins. I don't need to own this. I'm glad I do. I mean, it's not going anywhere. I mean, theoretically, maybe one day I'll have a 17-year-old boy who's able to learn how to play Twilight Imperium and wants to get to the table with his big old pops. But for now, for the next 17 years, unless I'm lending my copy to a game group to facilitate their ability to play, it is just taking up space. It's great. It's brilliant. It's one of the best games ever, period. It is a seasonal convention-style game. If you go to board game conventions, arrange yourself a sweet little game of Twilight Imperium. Don't buy a copy, though. That would be silly. The next one, let's move on to a lovely big box game. We're talking Frosthaven. And I own Gloomhaven, and I own Jaws of the Lion, and I own Crimson Scales, and I own Trail of Ashes, and it's great, and it's fantastic, and I love it, and I'm never getting, I mean, my wife and I are almost finished with Jaws of the Lion. That is this big compared to, it's so small compared to Frosthaven, and we never played through Gloomhaven outside of the digital app. Like, we've played scenarios, but the digital app is how we're going to be playing through all of Gloomhaven, and by the time we're done with that, the Frosthaven digital app will probably be available, and we'll probably just play it through that way. I want to play this. I want to play this on the table, fully, the whole campaign so badly that I'm not selling it, it's not going any. I mean, it's sitting on my shelf. But this is too big. This is too big of a commitment. Life is complicated. We've got work and videos to film and edit and new games to play and prototypes coming in. We've got a child to raise, a wife to keep happy, a house to clean, a studio to get prepared to host guests. I can't play a campaign-style board game of this size and scale unless something else in the world justifies it. And I'm sorry, folks. I'm not going to even attempt to film, record, edit, and publish the entire campaign of Frosthaven. It's just a lot. It's just too much. We've got Kingdom Death for that, which I'm already overcommitted on. Could be on this list. It isn't, but it could be on any list, right? Frosthaven, just too big of a campaign game. Unlikely to get to the table. I'd love it to, But man, oh man. Next one. The Bad Karmas. Played the prototype version of this, thought it was super compelling. But when am I going to deal with a game this size and scale? When am I going to get a digital version of a prototype-esque, a first technology out, you know, the Temaru system, right? Playing this boss battler in this digital complexive app. Maybe I'll get it at the table to cover it here on the channel, but the reality is, like, it fits in a very weird niche space in this hobby, and it's still learning to be exactly what it is. It's fun, it's compelling. I liked it a lot when we explored it for the first time ever, but I now have a copy of this sitting here, and it's just big. It's just a lot. It just feels way more daunting than anyone is willing to learn and teach me, and then I'm willing to sit down and deal with. I mostly grabbed this one because it's the game that I would love to play this. I'd love to sit down and explore it. But the fact that it's a new type of board game just makes it feel kind of inaccessible, if that makes sense. Last category of games. These are games that don't have too many components. They're not too big in and of themselves, but the context needed means I will never play these. I'm going to start off with my sweet little duck dealer. The game that almost made Splotter go bankrupt. I have played this, actually recorded a gameplay of this one time. And it was awesome. The gameplay was a lot of fun, except for the fact that we never turned on the top camera, so you guys can't see anything in it. So we never edited it, never published it. And it's just a fun memory. Published in 2008, this is a game all about procrastinating your action, passing your turn. You'll spend an hour sitting, looking at the table going, I'm going to collect resources and pass. Because the engine of the game is limited by the number of actions that players take, and you want to make the most effective, efficient route possible when you take your action. So you just keep collecting stuff, you keep harvesting stuff, until finally, after you've brainstormed and thought through it, another player takes their action and ruins your entire project and zooms around the board, does 30 or 40 different things, scores tons of points, and you're back at ground zero being like, oh man, the entire game has changed. I still have 120 cubes worth of resources to utilize. Let me spend 5 minutes just sitting here staring at the board trying to figure out exactly how I'm going to make the perfect run happen. This game's brilliant. This game was not loved by the vast majority of the audience because they didn't understand what a splotter is. I understand what a splotter is, and I'm a big fan of them. I also know it's so unique. It's such a unique board game. If I was going to teach it to anyone, it would be because it's so unique. But I just never find myself wanting to be in a position where I risk a couple-hour game experience on a board game that, one, was universally not loved, and two, has its core mechanic as you passing your turn. It's not going anywhere, though. I mean, it might even be competitive for my top 20. I need to play it a few more times. That's the only issue. That's not going to happen. Let's talk about Splotter, because like I said, I know what a Splotter is. And Roads and Boats is one of those games that I've actually played multiple times with a game group that's ready to set up and run it. Requires a whiteboard and erasable markers for you to actually play this area control game. And it is wonderful. It is lovely. I used geese to steal resources from other people. I used a volcano to just absolutely annihilate, or a mountain range to absolutely annihilate someone by just continuing to send people in to clog up their roads, to build pathways all over their land. This is everything that Splotter is. It's the harbinger of games like Indonesia, games like Bus, games like Duck Dealer. It's just so weird and quirky and out there, and I have no other game that, one, uses some of the core mechanics, some of the systems that this has, actually physically drawing on the collaborative area control board, the stealing mechanics, the various maps. I love everything about Roads and Boats. Roads and Boats might just be in my top 10, certainly in my top 20 whenever I get around to making another list. But it's really, it's hard to get, you gotta teach people. You gotta learn the rules. That's my problem. If you're bad at simple math, you're bad at like addition, teaching games like this gets complicated. You've got quirky little icons and weird little boards, and the strategy, like Food Chain Magnet, requires some unique individual thoughts and requires a few games to get your feet underneath you, kind of like Indonesia. And after you figured out how it plays and how it scores, you've probably moved on to other games that are a little bit more accessible, or someone new has been added to your game group, and it's harder to get that core system down onto the table. It's weird, it's unique, it's diverse, and it is, I mean, it's kind of unplayable. In the most wonderful way. I mean, get the right person in your game group. It's very playable. But you probably don't have that person. Let's talk about Feudum. I've mentioned this game a number of times on this channel. I'll harp on it again. One of the most incredible pieces of artwork I've ever seen. One of the most ridiculously compelling Euro-style hand management, action selection style board games I've ever experienced. If you're willing to sit through the 2-hour teach with notes sitting in front of your section to learn how to use like the 17 cards that are in front of you and the multitude of actions you can take with them, this is worth it. Go to a board game convention, get taught this game, sit down and play it. You'll spend all afternoon figuring it out, and you'll walk away glad you did. But don't do like I did and immediately rush out and buy everything for it. I've got deluxeified components. I've got the actual player mat to sit down in front of me. I fell in love with this. I was sold. I was like, this is the example of what it means to be, one, a mad genius, and two, have no restraints when it comes to creating a board game. Oddbird Games, the designer of this, I believe, is a professor that just said, I'm going to make something that I think I would love. And then the rest of the world acknowledged that none of us are professors, and you probably need to go to college to learn exactly how to play Feudum. Mark Swanson is, 1, brilliant, 2, ridiculous, 3, has made a beautiful, wonderful, incredible game that I'm still going to continue to own. It's been maybe 3.5 years now. I have never got this copy actually played, actually down to the table. I would love to. Mark, if you're watching, come visit me in Cleveland, Ohio. Let's get this game played. Let's do like 7 gameplays of it. Let's record them. Let's just put them out over the next year. Because the only way I'm getting some of these more complex games to the table is if I have someone sitting directly across from me saying, no, Jesse, you're going to look like, well, I was going to say idiot. You're going to look like more of an idiot than you already look like. You can't do that. You got to do something else. You got to play the game right. Last board game. And this is one that I think we've acknowledged in a video in the past that it should be leaving. It's still in shrink wrap, and it was actually in my personal top 10 board games of all time when I did my original list maybe 2, 3, 4 years ago. It's been a long time. Space Empires, GMT Games. You got to get in a line to purchase a copy of this game. When you open it up, which I haven't done, for this reason, you got to punch like 700 chits and then get them all organized. You got to figure out a tub or a container to organize them on. And then you got to learn the game. And then it's a whole economy system, a whole blind space exploration, a area control combat style, head-to-head skirmish, 4 players, 3 players, 2 players, masterpiece where the economy of your ships get leveled up, technology gets added, and you can do things like send clouds of ships as if there really are ships there floating into outer space, crossing into the opponent's borders, and then explode them with no one on the ship so it doesn't hurt you at all. It just annihilates your opponent. Then you can swoop in from the side, steal their planet, and claim victory for yourself. That's what this is. It's a true 4X game, right? It's a explore, exterminate, exploit, and expand. Is that right? I don't know, the last experiment, endeavor. There's a lot of, I guess endeavor doesn't work. That's a different board game. I don't own that board game, actually, but I own this one, and I haven't opened this one. I had one friend who fell in love with this, who had a copy for himself, who taught me how to play it, who made me love it. And then China decided to release a pandemic, and the world shut down, and I moved out of Washington, D.C., and that friend was no longer available, and now I have a copy for myself, and proud to have it, proud to tell people. When people come and visit, I point at that game and I said, that game's amazing, one of my favorites of all time. And then I clarify and I say, I'm not teaching it to you, no, we can't open it. And yeah, This is one that's just there because fond memories of the past and hopeful goals in the future. If my son's about 1/3 smarter than me, he'll teach me this game. And I'm looking forward to that. Just gotta wait 17 years. There you have it. There's 10 games I really shouldn't own anymore. Let me know, what's on your list? What should you honestly be getting rid of? Because I might have some I'm willing to trade. I'm kidding. I don't. These are all staying. I've got other board games. I've got so many board games. Just swing by, come over, play some of these, get one of these to the table with me. I'll give you something as a gift going home. If you know how to play any of these games, come organize one of these games, get it all like set up for me, sit down with me, hang out, play, maybe do a little bit of filming. As a parting gift, I'll send you home with some board games. I've got too many. I've got too many. Thank you for watching. Let's have a good 2025. And whatever the case, whatever you do, remember to do the important thing. Hold on to that board game that you have high hopes for. It's not hurting anyone, hopefully. And that's honestly part of the fun of board games. It's not just getting to the table. Sometimes it's looking at them and thinking about what it'll be like when you do get it to the table, or what it was like when you did. Whatever the case, we'll see you next time. Bye.